Welcome back to another fun-filled episode of TigerBytes, where we feature innovative, creative practices and online learning from all across campus. Just a great opportunity to learn what your colleagues are doing in other areas of Auburn. So today we have with us Alycia Baggett Chastang, otherwise known as ABC.
That's right.
She is the senior IT project manager at the Office of Information Technology, and you collaborate a lot with Auburn Online.
I do.
So where are you from, and how did you find yourself at Auburn?
Originally from a place called Excel, Alabama. If you're not familiar with that, the closest big town is Monroeville next to it, home of Harper Lee, To Kill a Mockingbird. That's our claim to fame. But yeah, so originally from Excel, Monroeville area, and came to Auburn my freshman year for college. I'm one of those people who came here and never left. Yes, that's right. I actually started working while I was here in undergraduate in IT. Mm-hmm. My degree is in zoology. So I was previously a biologist, and that's kind of my heart and my passion in a lot of ways. But started working in IT, was just always kind of had a knack for it, and opened up a lot of doors and opportunities that I was unaware of previously. So long story short, worked as a biologist in the field. I miss those sweaty, hot days, right? Like doing all kind of field collections. But at the same time, I have so much appreciation for working in an office environment because I've lived that other side as well. And so decided to stick around in the IT sphere, came back to the university and started working full-time for the College of Science and Math, and got my master's in higher education administration because obviously was interested in kind of the background workings of the university. Right. And then found myself even further into the project management world. And then I know today talking about AUX and the Immersive Learning Experiences program, that's really combined a lot of my background from both the education sphere, the IT sphere, the instructional sphere. So really excited about that.
Great. So as you just described, you wear a lot of different hats at Auburn. But for this conversation, how would you describe your role as the project manager for AUX grants?
So AUX is honestly one of my favorite opportunities of my career. I'm so thankful for our CIO who kind of created this opportunity and let me be a part of it and kind of lead it because it's been wonderful. So outside of just the overall strategy, right, of the program, direction of that, and then, of course, being a good steward of the funding. In the project specifically, I'm really that steady presence for the faculty from start to finish. You know, I help provide the structure for them, really in project management practices they're not normally familiar with a grant process. So I help them get their resources together at the beginning, you know, identify everyone from the Auburn Online team, those instructional designers, the XR designers, their IT support. There's honestly so many people involved in these sorts of projects. So I help gather those folks together, create like an overall project plan. Some really important pieces of that are scope. You know, especially that's a problem with all projects, frankly. But especially with stuff when you're being very innovative and experimental, your idea can grow very quickly, and get legs and go in all kind of different directions. So I really help them hone in on what their goalpost is and identifying that. Also milestones, that's another really important and effective piece in project management, and we've seen in the AUX projects because, you know, those are mile markers along the way for both celebration and kind of assessment for them to take a look of like, oh wow, we've been rolling down this path for a while. We forgot what we're even working towards, but like here's a moment where we're reminded and we're able to celebrate that, hone in on any changes that need to be made. And then timeline, you know, obviously just things it can't go on forever. And sometimes these types of projects without the right amount of structure and governance in place, they tend to. So yeah, I help them brainstorm all of those obstacles. Honestly, if there's any answers or things I can't figure out myself, I help them find partners to collaborate with across campus and bring them to the table. And then after their project is actually over, I still work with the faculty members to help platform and support them, their work, their findings. So many of these projects lead to additional funding opportunities externally. So I make sure to kind of platform them from that. And then honestly, throughout the whole entire process, I try to hype them up. They're doing usually really cool, bleeding edge, innovative things that maybe a lot of their peers aren't familiar with or don't have time to focus on because they're juggling so many different things. So I really just try to meet them with empathy and enthusiasm and support along the way, and just hype them up. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So from your vantage point, what kinds of teaching and learning challenges are faculty most eager to solve with technology right now?
I think that in the last, I would say few years, but let's be real, several. There's like a total wave of iteration as this comes.
Yeah.
But there's been such a surge in new technologies, right? So many folks are just trying to have a moment to learn that technology themselves,
Right.
and to just even begin to explore how they apply that into their classroom or their teaching practices. So that in itself, I think, is just a big obstacle time. Everyone is juggling a lot, frankly, in higher education and at Auburn. And so I think that finding the time to be able to just learn it themselves and think creatively, but big picture wise, right? I personally think the biggest challenge is kind of a generational gap. I'm no historian by any means, but I think that we are in a very interesting time in history where the majority of our teachers had drastically different innate perspectives towards technology than the students that they are teaching. And that's just frankly because the world that we grew up in versus the world they grew up in, technology-wise,
Right.
primarily, is vastly different, right? So that changes our innate perspective of how we look at technology, how we approach it, our trustworthiness with it, right? Reliability, our problem solving with it, our attentiveness with it. So I think so many of our best and brightest faculty at Auburn are really taking a moment to try to bridge that gap, and find ways to make their course material more engaging, more captivating, and more interesting to the students, so that they can really hit that magic moment of learning.
So for faculty who might be hearing about the AUX grants for the first time, what's the big idea behind that program?
The big idea is to bring your big ideas, really. So we really want our faculty to kind of think outside the box, right? So going back to kind of the importance of that course curriculum, we really focus from the beginning on those student learning outcomes, right? We're wanting to measure that. We're wanting them to hone in on that from the start. So identify maybe, some of those student learning outcomes that you're struggling with, and then think outside the box about how you can create a more immersive and effective learning experience for the students. So AUX is really not about pushing the technology. It's about enabling the pedagogy. And that's kind of been at our core from the beginning. And then again, we're just very intentional about those assessment plans from the start. That's a big part of our proposal process, of them identifying that. So, the point of all that is that we really want to move that needle, and we're really focused on that. And our faculty often are as well, just from the get-go, because again, they have that intrinsic drive in themselves to do better and be more effective.
So in case you've intrigued somebody who's watching or listening, could you talk a little bit about the parameters in terms of like how much money people can apply for, what it can be spent on?
Yes, so we actually keep that a little loose and vague on purpose. That's been very intentional, and so
no wonder
far
I couldn't find this information.
Yes, that's been a little intentional because we really, again, we don't want to over structure in the ways that, let's say we're like, hey, we'll give you $100,000 for your big idea. Well, you're going to come up with $100,000 idea, aren't you? Exactly. And most would. Whereas if we say, okay, we're going to give you $5,000 for your big idea, you're like, oh, well, that doesn't even come close. Yeah. Exactly. So we really try to eliminate those kind of parameters that may indirectly affect the idea in itself. And so that is vague on purpose. But that is something that I'm happy to, if anyone's interested or has more questions about that, to have those conversations more one-on-one. But from a programmatic level, we've intentionally kept that vague. And then one other thing I'll add to that, because this is another, part of the big picture of AUX, is we really have a seed grant approach. So we're really hoping to fund some of our faculty's ideas just to get them off the ground so they can start to see if they're even on the right track.
Right.
Our hope is that it leads to external funding opportunities,
course,
which
yeah.
I'm grateful to say has happened so many times. And so that's really the point of it, is just to give them that little push and let their ball start rolling so that it can grow to something bigger and more impactful.
What excites you most about the partnership between OIT and the Biggio Center in supporting these proposals? And what are the roles that each of those two entities really plays?
First off, just getting to introduce the faculty to project management practices, like I said before, that's not something they're familiar with. And I just love seeing those light bulb moments, and that goes for everyone. I teach a lot of project management workshops in various ways. And those light bulb moments happen with everyone all the time because there's truly so much worth and value in a variety of the tools and little pieces of project management that we can all utilize in our personal and professional life to just help simplify things and make things a little easier, and maybe more successful. So just getting to do that in itself is exciting. But bigger picture, I think that you don't often see IT being the driving force by repeatedly funding faculty's big ideas, right? That's not something that I've seen at a lot of our peer institutions, and I think that is something very special. And we have found, so much power in that collaboration between our technology partners and our academic partners in the last 5 years of AUX running. So to that point, and your second question, the partnership between Biggio and OIT from the top looks like Dr. Asam Ali and myself co-leading this program and really fostering kind of the overall strategy of that. But it gets more granular so quick because it's such a collaborative program. So whether it's folks from my team on the OIT side or his and Biggio, I mean, we're constantly, every project is a new puzzle that we're putting together, and we're just constantly tapping into the pools of either experience, knowledge, interest from each of those groups and creating kind of a masterpiece.
So augmented and virtual reality really intrigue people. We've all seen movies like The Matrix.
Oh, yeah.
So how do you help faculty move from, boy, this sounds really cool, to this actually improves learning and enhances outcomes?
Well, the good news is that I don't have to always have those answers. But I will say, from the leadership team, all of us are tapped into a variety of different resources and communities, even outside of Auburn, to help kind of keep our finger on the pulse of what else is going on so that we don't recreate any wheels or go down tunnels that maybe someone else has already went down and realized that it's not as fruitful. Me personally, a way that I do that is I've recently just been named one of the co-leads for the XR community group in EDUCAUSE. I'm not sure if you're familiar with EDUCAUSE, and that is just a great opportunity and very well timed, and I'm very excited to see how I can further learn from that community and even help shape that, where we're all sharing resources, again, not all recreating the same wheel, and learning from each other's successes, but most importantly, each other's failures and missteps.
So what are some of the most promising ways you've seen immersive technologies deepen student engagement and understanding?
I will say we have really seen and wielded the power of storytelling. That is just such an effective tool, I think, in life and anything, and especially as you're bringing people outside of their normal world realm into this virtual or augmented space, the power of storytelling. So I'll give you two specific examples. So one of those is Mark Trainer. I know you've actually spoken to him previously over in hospitality management. So one of his projects is this expansive interactive course about the food safety exam. So that's a national exam that everyone has to take if they're in hospitality management, right? Any kind of industry like that. So he was able to create a course that actually makes that so engaging and interesting. And we have found through the last few semesters of him utilizing it, that his students are really enjoying it. And I'll just say again, from my personal experience, one thing that in hospitality management they preach into you that you have to do, right, is the 15-second hand wash. I don't know if you've ever washed your hands for 15 seconds.
It's a long time.
It is a long time. And you do it one time in that VR environment, and it just really sticks with you. Like that again, very small example, but that experience has stuck with me ever since. But yeah, so just something like that, whereas that previously might be just a stat, a data point, a number on a page, just walking through it is kind of where the magic happens and where it really sticks. Another example I'll give to you is another person that I know you've spoken to, which is Rachel Prado.
Yeah.
Yes, in the chemistry department. So again, she's created a expansive and wonderful interactive course that replicates the chemistry lab. And, I, being a biologist previously, I went through Organic 1 and Organic 2 here at Auburn. And I struggled, right? Like how many of us did. That was my brain did not work that way, especially when it came to visualizing, right? Like so many of these molecular structures and how they interact. And there's so many variables about if this changes or that changes. And she has created an experience that allows students to take something from that like micro level and visualize it and then interact and play with it. And I will tell you, the first time I walked through that experience, we laughed about it because I told her, I was like, I think that just finally clicked. How much time, money, and effort did I spend in those 2 organic chemistry courses trying to learn like this basic building block concept? And I just could not get it for whatever reason. I play with your experience for 5 to 7 minutes and I'm suddenly having this light bulb moment, right? Because I can visualize it and I can see it. So again, 2 small examples, but just the power of that experience and the impact that has on learning.
So you work closely with Auburn Online and faculty teams. What kind of advice do you give instructors who are excited about innovation but unsure where to start?
So honestly, just meet with them. Meet with Auburn Online. I've said already, but I'm so impressed always by kind of the creativity and the wisdom of that group. And I think that you can just walk into their offices with a small idea and quickly find yourself down a rabbit tunnel of brainstorming this super creative and complex solution. But in the sake of and respect of time and efficiency, I would say, again, take that moment. Find some stillness, find some space for your brain to be able to be creative. Think through, 2 to 3 maybe struggles that you see in your course curriculum, especially things that are very impactful for the students' overall learning in that discipline and ultimately their success in their career, right? Those building block moments that like if they don't get this right, step 2 and step 3 down the road is really hard for them. So identify some of those. Keep your idea, broad, be open to that creativity because as soon as you approach the Auburn Online team with that, that's the magic just starts to happen with the different perspectives and knowledge base that is there. So yeah, I would just say definitely meet with them and then focus on those student learning outcomes and just overall curriculum success. And that's going to help you identify and create a project and a project proposal that's really attractive to our committee.
Well, and I wanted to ask about the proposals. What separates a decent proposal that may or may not get funded versus the one where you say, wow, this is really compelling?
Yes. I would say the ones that are, again, a few steps past that initial ideation stage. They've met with Auburn Online. They've talked about what's actually reasonable, attainable, possible. They have spoke with their leadership. They've gotten support from them. That's crucial. They've got a decent assessment plan already in place or in their mind. They've clarified kind of with themselves like the purpose or their true intent that what they're trying to move the needle on.
So they're not just winging it.
That's right. And then, I would say probably biggest is that they have truly assessed their own resource constraints. Back to the thing of time with faculty.
Right.
That is something that we regularly run into issues with because they're juggling so many plates and they have so many other responsibilities and duties. And what we have learned in AUX is that innovation takes time, right? And while I'm working to manage those expectations and timelines carefully, we also respect that innovation takes time. And we've kind of given space for that through iteration, through learning, whether each proposal, each round, right? And so faculty really thinking about that for themselves and making sure that they have the time that they can carve out to commit to this kind of project, I think is very crucial. And that jumps off the page when we start reading through proposals.
So if we fast forward a few years, what would success look like for AUX grants and immersive learning at Auburn? And how do you hope students talk about these experiences that they get with these programs?
I think success for me would be, that we are still partnering and fostering this deeper learning and truly making an impact on that. I think that in the future, I hope that we've had a strengthened collaboration between our IT leaders and our academic leaders. Again, there's so much power in that. That's one of our secret sauces that we've really found in the success of this program. But I hope that we are continuing to strategically approach kind of exploration and growth in the technology sphere and how that can support deeper learning. And then swapping over to students, I hope they're inspired by it. I hope that this makes them more interested to go further, to think more deeply, to feel the subject matter, whatever they're studying, to feel it, to connect with it. And then that prompts them to explore it further, to go deeper, right? And then ultimately learn more, right? And increase their ability to learn better. So that's what I hope, that it inspires them.
Okay. Well, thanks for being here, Alycia. This
Yeah.
has been a lot of fun.
Thank you.
I feel like the grant program is in good hands.
Yes, thank you. I hope so. Yeah, and for anyone who may have questions about AUX and just what maybe your own idea or what we're doing on a larger scale, please feel free, to reach out. I think our website is the AuBLeak/AUX-info. And then my email is just alycia@auburn.edu. So feel free to check out our whole portfolio online I only mentioned 2 today, but we've got 27 projects that we've funded over the last 5 years and 3 rounds of kind of proposals. So I encourage you to check out that portfolio. It is inspiring when you look through and see just the variety and diversity of just curriculums and approaches that we're taking with so many of our projects. And so I'm very proud of that.
Well, that brings this episode to a close. Thanks for joining us on TigerBytes, and please come back for the next one. Thank you for joining us for this episode of TigerBytes. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and gained some valuable insights. Please like, subscribe, and share this podcast with your friends and colleagues. You can find us on all major platforms. And keep learning, keep growing, and we'll see you next time on TigerBytes.